Well, hello there. This is Jan Karel Pieterse. I've been an Excel MVP since way back in 2002, and I'm going to present to you in this modern Excel webinar. And I'm going to talk about working with tables in Microsoft Excel. Don't worry, you're looking at a PowerPoint presentation, but we're not going to do PowerPoint today. So this PowerPoint presentation only has like 5 slides. And slide number 2, if I can get PowerPoint to progress, contains my table of contents. So I'm going to introduce myself shortly. I'm going to talk about why would you use a table, how do you create a table, how do you format a table, talking about resizing, talking about the new formula syntax that's introduced with tables, and I'll show some filtering capabilities. And I'll also show you some limitations because there always are. By the way, some of the household keeping here is needed to say you can ask your questions anytime during this presentation. Just type them in your chat window and the team over at Microsoft is going to relay them straight to me. If I don't answer your question directly, I probably forgot to look at the chat window while being busy doing my presentation. So bear with me, I'll try and pay attention at the chat. So let's dive in. Who am I? I'm Jan Karel Pieterse, as I said earlier, and there's my picture of probably already 4 years ago. I'm a self-employed Excel consultant, and I own a website called jkp-ads.com. Head over if you have time after this webinar or during the webinar for all I care, and have a look at the utilities I have over at my site and the Excel articles. And like I said, I've been an Excel MVP since 2002, so this is calculating the 19th MVP award that I've received. Wow. So let's alt tab back to Excel, which is where the fun is. And I prepared an Excel file for my presentation, which contains all of the stuff that I want to talk about. And here's my table of contents. And the first question to answer is, why would you use tables? Because Excel functions perfectly all right without them, right? Well, yes, kind of. The first thing I want to point you is we have a table of sales per month, and at the top over here, I have a sum formula that sums the sales. I have a pivot table over here, which actually uses the data of this table. If I click on the change source data, you'll be able to see that this is the source data of my table. And then finally, I have a little chart over here that's also using the data. Okay, so let's add a month to our data because November has just been closed and we've received the sales, and November was a particularly good month because we had Black Friday and everything. Yeah, I did an early Black Friday this year. And one thing that immediately stands out is if you look at the total here, it's still pointing to my old area. If I refresh my pivot table, let's do that, refresh. It's still displaying the same total here, and my chart's also still not displaying the 250 I just added. So that's all quite disappointing. And I want a way to actually fix all this. And this is a pretty simple setup where everything that's using this table is actually on the same sheet within the viewable area. But as you can imagine, if you're building spreadsheets regularly, it usually is not. Your sum formula might be on your dashboard as well as the chart, and maybe a piece of your pivot table as well. So let's start over. I'm going to delete the entry I just made, and I'm going to select any cell within my little table, and I'm going to my Insert tab on the ribbon right here, click, and I'll click on the Insert Table, which has a shortcut key called Control-T. I'll just click on it. So what happens here is Excel pops up a small questionnaire for you, asking where's the data for your table. And if your table has the data in it is contiguous and there are no empty columns in between, it will properly select the data of your table. And please make sure that you look at this checkbox and make sure that it's checked if you have a header row at the top of your table. I'll just click OK, and Excel formats my range as a table. So that's all well and good, but my formulas haven't changed, have they? This one's still pointing to that area. My chart is still pointing at my table, good. And I assume that my pivot table is as well. But okay, now something has changed in the way Excel behaves. I'm going to type the date again. And please pay attention to my chart, to the bottom right corner of my chart when I click enter. I'm going to click enter now. And as you can see, November 1st was added to my chart's x-axis. And if I now type the number 250, you'll see the 250 come up here somehow and the y-axis scale change. So without doing anything special, typing information underneath the table convinced Excel to expand the table and also to make sure that the chart that's pointing at the table keeps pointing at the entire table, and so my chart updates automatically. Also, if you look at my sum formula over here, that one has automatically changed as well. It's now pointing to all cells of my table, of my column sales, as I would like it to do. Funny enough, my pivot table hasn't updated. Well, that's because pivot tables don't update as long as you don't tell it to. So let me just right-click my pivot table and refresh it, and you should see the 7001 appear in the total. There it is. So that is actually one of the most important benefits of converting a range to a table. It ensures that all your formulas that use a table column keep pointing to the entire table column. It makes sure that if you have pivot tables, they point to the entire content of the table, and the same goes for charts and lots of other functionality in Excel. Okay, let me go back to my table of contents. So that's one reason why you would use tables, and it's actually, if you ask me, it's the most important reason why you would use a table. If your data looks like a table, use format as table and format it using that button over here or over here. Okay, let's go back to the table of content and go to my second wide use table sheet. And I'll show you a couple of other cool things with tables, and this is a very simple one. I have a longer table and I'm interested in anything that's beneath the table. So I'm going to click inside my table and then use my mouse wheel to scroll down and pay attention what happens here on the C and D columns. As you can see, the date heading and the sales heading has now pushed itself up into the row headings or the column headings of Excel. And you can actually use the filtering buttons too. If you don't see that happening in your Excel file, you've probably not selected a cell inside the table. If I now click next to the table, you'll see that the column headings change back to their usual C and D. If I click back in the table, I'll get the headings of the table in my column headers, as you see. So that's one thing. There's a slight restriction in here, which I'll talk about later. But let's now first proceed in how you would change the formatting of your table. So basically, you can change your table design very, very easily. If you just click inside the table, you'll see a table design tab appear in the ribbon. And if you're using Excel 2016, then you probably have a Table Tools tab up here and then a Design tab beneath that. In modern Excel, it's Table Design separately. And the way to change the look of this table is just by clicking this gallery over here and moving your mouse over the various items you have. And Excel will preview how the table will look if you click any of them. So let's just change it to red just for fun. Other fun things here are things like banded rows and columns, which you can turn on and off. So the banding of the rows that they have turned on and which is on by default if you insert a table can be easily turned off by just unchecking this box over here. Alternatively, if your data is calls for it, you could also change it to use banded columns. It depends on your design wishes. I would not recommend to combine banded rows and banded columns because it makes your table look a bit awkward. You have these white cells in between colored cells, and it doesn't really look good. Other alternatives are to make your first column or your last column appear differently. And currently with this design, all it does is it makes the content of the column bold. And then finally, you can turn the filter buttons on and off, and you can hide the header row of the table. I have no idea what this feature is for. I've never used it in my life. Okay. There's some other stuff here which you can do if you're applying the table formatting. As you can see, I've manually applied a fill color to this row of the table just by clicking on Home and clicking on the Fill button over here. So if your table contains formatting that's already there before you apply the table, you can remove the formatting by just right-clicking on the style that you like, for example, this one, and then choosing this option or that option. So this option will clear the current orange fill. Okay. Any questions yet? No questions. Probably very, very clear in my explanation then. What's more to say about tables? Oh, yes. I showed you when I applied a table to the range using this Insert Table button, that the table had a certain design, and that design was this color. So Excel has a default table style, and that's the bluish one, this one. But you can change that any way you like. So you can, for example, right-click this table style. Let's choose this one, and set that one as your default table style. Because if you don't particularly like blue, you can change it to red anytime. And then anytime you press Control-T to insert a table, you'll get the red one. Okay. So that's that. Let me see. Oh, yes. If you don't particularly like the current table style at all, you can also design your own. You can right-click any style that is maybe close to the style that you like. Let's just pick this one and select Duplicate. And once you click that, Excel will pop up a dialog. And the first thing it will ask you is what table style name would you like to use? So I'll just name this one JKP. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the way that the table style actually creates the row striping. So I'm going to click on First Row Stripe. And so First Row Stripe has a drop down here called Strip Size. So you can actually tell Excel that you want it to color 2 rows in turn differently. And then if you want to have the rows 3 and 4 in the same column, you have to remember to click Second Row Stripe and set that one to 2 as well. So if you do that and click OK, you would expect that this table changes its formatting. Let's try that. it does not. Why doesn't it do that? That's because we've only added a new style to this gallery, and it's a custom style. And only once I click this style is it applied to my table. There you go. So you can see that I have now alternate striping, but it goes in pairs of 2 rows. Good. Let's see what's up next. Tables and formulas. And I encourage you guys, if you have a question, just type it in your chat window, and I'll be happy to try and answer them. So, a table with data is useless unless you do some calculations in them, isn't it? I mean, Excel's for calculations. So let's calculate the profit of this sales and cost table. As in any Excel formula, we start typing the equal sign, and then I just press the left arrow key to start selecting the cell that I want to have first in my formula, and that's the sales cell. So watch the formula bar. And as you see, Excel starts using a special syntax. So rather than just putting D6 in my formula like this, D6, if I use the arrow keys to change my formula, oh, that was a glitch of mine. Let me just delete this formula. Start over. Equal sign. Rather than entering D6, Excel now changes this to square bracket ampersand sales, square bracket close. Meaning I want the content of the cell in column sales of the same row that my formula is in. That's what the ampersand is for. So now I'm going to subtract my cost from my sales. So I'm just going to left arrow, subtracting cost, and lo and behold, if I press enter, watch what happens. Excel puts that same formula in all the cells of my column. So that's a neat feature of a table as well. If you write a formula in any cell in a column that's currently empty, it will automatically update that column with that formula. If I make a change to any cell in that column, like for example, let's do something stupid like subtract 10 from here, Excel will automatically update my formula to subtract 10 from all of them. So let's undo that change, just get rid of the -10. Never hard code numbers in your formulas like this. So Excel helps you make your spreadsheet consistent by updating a column formula in the entire column automatically. There's no extra work for you to be done. And actually, Excel also remembers the formulas in your table. So basically in this table, we have manual input in these cells, and we have formulas in these 2 columns. Formula is just to display the formula in the column to the left so that we can see what's in there. So I can just delete all of the table. Let's do that right now. Right click, delete table rows. My table is now empty. And as soon as I type anything in one of the cells of my table, my formulas will reappear. So Excel remembers the formulas in the table, even if the table is totally empty. I'm now going to undo clearing my table because I wanted to show you some other stuff as well. Of course, you can also type your formulas. I'm a keyboard guy, so I'm not really using my mouse. So if I want to sum my sales, what I usually do is just type sum, bracket open, and then the name of that table. And here's a snag. So if you create a table in Excel, Excel doesn't actually help you and ask you for a name. You have to remember to give your table a name yourself. So let's do that right now. I'm going to click in my table, and over here on the table design tab of the ribbon, all the way on the left, there's the name of the table. And I'm going to name this table TBL profit. Let's call it profit. And I have a very good reason to start my table name with TBL because I've made a habit of naming all my tables that way. Because if I now start typing my formula, sum, if I start with TBL, all that's left in here is anything that contains TBL, including all my tables. In this case, I need table profit, so I just hit tab. And then I don't want to sum the entire table, so I'm going to press the opening square bracket, and I'm going to pick sales. Now at this point, I'm used to just hitting enter because Excel has the feature that if you forget your closing parentheses, it adds them for you. Problem is that it doesn't do that with tables, so you have to remember to actually type the closing square bracket here, and now you can hit enter. There's your formula for you, and you can see that the syntax is actually the same sales between square brackets, but it's prepended with the table name. If you're just starting out using tables, it's probably a lot easier to just use your mouse. So let's do that too. So I'm going to delete my formula, type equal sign, sum, and I want to sum the profit this time. Now watch my mouse pointer closely. It's the usual cross now, but if I move my mouse over the heading of my profit column, you see my mouse pointer change to a downwards pointing black arrow. And I just click once. And as you can see, it inserts the table profit square bracket profit column for me. So I don't have to actually do all the typing and remembering what the syntax looks like precisely. And this is especially useful if you, for example, want to sum two columns, like why wouldn't you sum sales and cost? Well, because it's silly, but I'm just doing it to show you how that looks in table style formula syntax. And it makes something complicated like table profit, square bracket, sales, closing square bracket, double point. I don't know what that's in English, and etc. So let me just change that to sales again, like that. So if you're not sure about the syntax, just use your mouse to select what you need and Excel will enter it for you. Okay, so these table names are available in various places in Excel. So it shows them to you if you type a formula. It also shows the table names in here in the name box. There's the table profit over here. So if I click that, it selects that one. Excuse me. Apologies, I just needed a sip of water. So the table names are over here, and they're also in your name manager dialog, which is on your formulas tab, name manager, and it lists all of your tables here as well. And there's your table profit again. If you're using structured references, that's what this new table pointing syntax is called. Something changes in the way Excel works with copying and pasting. So take this formula over here, table sum profit sales. If I copy this to the right, so I'll just right click, copy, and then I'll select these two cells and just paste. What you see is that the references do not change. So there's some sales over here, and there's also some of sales over here. So I just copied the formula, and it didn't change. But there's a difference between how you copy your formula. Excel behaves differently when you actually use the fill handle. So I'm going to use the fill handle now and drag to the right. And lo and behold, now it actually changes the formula to point to the adjacent column and behaves just like it would when you would have normal cell references. So actually, I find this behavior sometimes to be a bit awkward, especially if your formula is pointing to combinations of various columns and you want it to stay put on one column but to change on other ones. And there is a really awkward way of making sure that a reference stays put, but it's relatively complicated to actually type it in. Okay. So to repeat, if you copy and paste, just Control-C, Control-V, you get the same references. If you drag the fill handle, it will make them relative. Okay, so changing the size of the table. So suppose you have some information under here which you want to include in your table. Let me just enter some bogus information here. A quick and easy way is to just drag the corner of the table, and it'll include the data in the table. Another way is to just click inside the table, and on the Table Design tab, there's a button called Resize Table just below the table name box. I can just use the arrow keys, so I'm holding down my Shift key and arrowing down just as far as I need, and click OK. So that's another way. And then, of course, you can just add a row by typing. So let me just type November 1st, like I already showed you earlier, and press Enter, and it will add the row to the table. All this automatic resizing of the table sometimes is not wanted, and you can actually turn that off, but it's a bit awkward to find. So I've put a screenshot in here that tells you where you can do that. So the steps are that you open the File Options dialog of Excel, and then go to the Proofing tab, and then click on Auto Correct Options, and then on the Auto Format as you type tab, and then are you still with me? And then finally you can uncheck this box. So let me repeat that. Live, File, Options, Proofing, Auto Correct Options, Auto Format as you type, and uncheck this box. And while we're looking at this dialog anyway, you can also tell Excel that you don't want it to fill formulas down as you type them. I recommend keeping both of these on because it's a feature that helps you creating consistent spreadsheets, because you don't get tables with formulas that maybe only run halfway, or where you have data underneath your table that's not included in the table. Let's see, what else did I have over here? Oh yeah, okay, good. Let me get rid of this row. There's also a feature called Total Row. So back on that Table Design tab again, I'm going to turn on the Total Row. And by default, Excel is going to add a sum formula in the bottom right corner of your table. But you can actually change that. So if I look at the formula, it has inserted a subtotal formula. And the reason that it uses subtotal is that if you filter your table, the total reflects the data that you're looking at. You could also change that to, for example, average, but you need to remember to then, of course, change your heading over here to display. Of course, that's just need to type average here. Okay, so let's select average here. Now the snag here is that, of course, if you have a multi-column table, it doesn't really make sense now to sum this column and to average this column and have a problem with what label to put in this cell. So I would recommend just total and have some here and some here as well. Problem is now, what do I do if I want to insert new data to my table? In the previous examples, I just typed the 1st of November in this cell. I have thick fingers at the moment, I'm sorry. And I'll just click on enter. And as you can see, Excel now doesn't really understand that it needs to expand my table. So we'll have to do that manually, unfortunately. And one way, as I already showed you, is to drag down that corner. Now, you don't need to actually be afraid that Excel is now going to overwrite your data. What it in fact is going to do, as soon as I release my mouse button, it's going to swap the total and my November 1st entry like this. So that's one way of expanding the table when it has a total inside. Another way is to just right-click inside the table and choose Insert Table Rows Below, so that it inserts a new empty row just above the total row, like this. Or alternatively, you can just hit the Tab key until you're on the bottom right corner just above your total. And if you now hit Tab once more, it's going to automatically insert an empty row. Like this. So that's a couple of ways to insert a new row if you have a total row in your table. And of course, you can insert rows anywhere in your table. You can just right-click on this one, select Insert, and insert a table row above, like this. And interesting, for some reason, Excel has now messed up all of my formatting. Guys, are you looking, Microsoft? Look, I just clicked right-click, insert table rows above, and my entire table formatting goes haywire. Interesting. Okay. I guess that's enough about inserting rows and resizing the table and everything. I think that was all I had to cover for this page. Let's continue with filtering. So, everyone knows autofilter, and there's no difference in autofilter if it's on a table or in a normal range. So I can just click on the drop down for dates. And as you know, Excel is rather intelligent with dates, as it knows to actually group them by month, and it enables you to expand them to the different days of the month if there are any different days. And also this area of date filters is interesting because it shows you things like next week, this week, last week, next month, next year, this year, quarters, or dates in a certain period like Q1. Let's just try that one like this, and many other options. Let me clear the filter for now. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is if you're filtering by region, for example, and you want to show everything but one region, you can just uncheck that one region here, right? Let's just click OK. But what if I also want to not see the region South and want to, suppose I have many different regions named with different names, and I filter for those regions. So let's say that I want to unfilter West. So how would I make sure that West is no longer visible, but include the other ones? What's not known widely is that you can uncheck West here, but if you check Add Current Selection, it will keep the other one. I'll filter away West. So now we end up with just South and North. And I practiced this before the presentation and it went really well, but now it's a bit messy. I'm sorry about that. Another neat way to filter your table is by inserting slicers. And so I'm going to click inside my table. And on the table design tab, there is a button called Insert Slicer. Now, slices are relatively new, slices on tables. I believe they were added in Excel 2013 or maybe 2016. I'm not entirely sure. But if, at the very least, if you're using Excel 2010, you will not find this button here. Click Insert Slicers. It's going to show you a list of all table headings that are there. I'm going to insert a slicer for the region, and I'm just going to click OK, and that makes it filtering of your table really easy, because it's now very easy to just filter for West like that. And if I just drag across my slicer, I'm going to filter the other ones, or maybe if I control click, I can unfilter or filter like that. So tables can have slices as well. Let's go back to my table of content. Now I can just go to limitations. So there are some limitations with tables. One of them I hear a lot of people complain about is that we cannot have a setup like this and create a table from this. If I click Insert Table over here, it's going to push up the column names at the top, and you'll end up having your labels inside of your data area of the table. Undo this. It looks terrible. So multi-line header rows is not acceptable for a table. The alternative I always tell people to use is maybe to just include any category names in the heading name of your column. It doesn't look pretty, but it works really well in formulas, because you can just sum the cost of purchasing like this, I mean, and it immediately tells you that we're looking at a cost column, and it is about cost of purchasing. Another restriction, and I think that's a really unfortunate restriction, is the restriction that you cannot protect your worksheet if you want your user to be able to add rows to the table. So this worksheet over here is now currently not protected. So if I enter a date here and press enter, Excel automatically adds a row to my table. I'm going to undo this. I took the trouble of unlocking all cells on this worksheet, and now I'm going to protect my worksheet. So I'm going to the Review tab. I'm going to click the Protect Sheet button. And to try and make this work, I'm going to check all of these boxes. So I want to allow my user everything there is to be allowed on a protected sheet, hoping that my table will work. So now I'll leave the password box empty because it's easy to unprotect. I'm just going to click OK now. One thing you'll notice is that the table expand icon over here has disappeared. And if I type a date in this cell and press enter, my table does not expand any longer. Also, if I click inside my table and I go to my table design tab, my resize table button has become unavailable. I can't also right click inside my table and insert any table rows. And if I try to be smart and maybe right click on a row that's inside the table, I can insert an entire row. So there's actually one workaround there. You can actually insert a row for your table if you think of inserting an entire row in your entire spreadsheet. Good, that's good. I didn't even know that. I just tried that during this meeting. So let me remove protection again for the remainder of this demo. Review, unprotect sheet. Because the next limitation that we have is that your header row cannot contain formulas. So for example, in these columns, I've inserted formulas to calculate the date, depending on the position, just to make it easier for myself. If I want to drag this formula to the right, I can just do so, and it will know to put in the other months. And I'm sorry that these are in Dutch. My Windows is set to Dutch. But what happens if I try and convert this range to a table? Let's look and see what happens. Table, it has the right area, it has the my table has header box checked, and I click OK, and Excel starts to complain. Formulas or rich data types in the header row will be removed and converted to static text. Do you want to continue? Let's do that. So if I now click on these, you can see that the formula has changed to hard-coded text. And if I test to see whether this is actually a date, I can just use the isNumber formula, isNumber, because a date is actually a number. And it will tell me that it's not a number. So these aren't actual dates. Excel actually converted this to text values. So even if you have numbers on your table row, Excel will treat those numbers as text. Another limitation is that column names must be unique in your table. So if we have a table here, let me convert this, and I pressed Control T, by the way, to get this dialog box. If I have, again, sorry. If you look at this table, it has two columns containing remarks, this one and this one. And if you looked closely, you'll see that it will rename the second column. So I press Control T, and as soon as I click OK, this column over here will not contain remarks anymore, but it will contain remarks 2. So Excel automatically renames duplicates. So if I try to add another remarks, it will probably append a 3. We can't see it, but I'll expand this column so we can see it. So that's kind of a limitation too, but it's it makes sense to have it because Excel is using this structured referencing syntax. And as you can imagine, if you have columns with the same name, Excel will not know which column to pick. This one, or this one, or maybe that one. Okay, time to go back to my table of content. I'm reaching the end of my presentation material, and I just wanted to point you at a little add-in that I prepared to make working with tables slightly more easy. I have a link to my website over here, and I'm not sure if Microsoft is going to make this Excel file available for download, but then you can find the link over here. If not, just go to my website, which is jkpads.com, and search for table tools. And I'm going to open that file right now. There it is. And that little tool adds a button to the ribbon, but more importantly, it also adds to the right click menu a go to table entry. So I can quickly find my tables. And while I'm inside my table, if I right click, my go to table button will contain the header, the column names of my table inside my table. So that makes it easy to find column names, especially if you have a really wide table with lots and lots of columns. Also, in the background, this little table tools add-in is going to keep tabs on you. If you rename one of the columns in your table, my table tools add-in is going to look inside your workbook to see if you have used any Power queries using this table. And if it has, it will look inside the query to see if it has to rename the column name in the query as well. Because currently Excel does not do that by itself. Let me see, so that's my table tools add-in. Quite easy to use. And it has some features over here as well, which I forgot to mention, and that is if you have a new table like this, there's a convert to table button here, which is special because it has a slightly different dialog design. The first thing it asks you is what's going to be the name of your new table. So you can type it in right there rather than having to go to the table design tab and click there again. So table name is TBL demo. And also my checkbox that the table has a header row is always checked by default. So you can just, click the button, type the name, click OK, and you're done. Your table is properly named, as we can see here, table demo. Also, if you use table tools to rename your table, right here, it will look in your Power Query queries to see if that table is in a query and rename it there as well. I think I am at the end of what I wanted to say. Yes, I am. So I'm going to click thank you. And just say thank you for attending this modern Excel webinar. Should you have any questions, just use my email address, send me the question, and if I have time, I'll just answer your questions. If you're interested in that table tools add-in, or if you want to learn more about tables and VBA, there's a URL there that you can use to actually find more on my website about how would you address tables in VBA. So that still leaves 10 minutes, so I'll just open the floor for questions. Okay, so if there aren't any questions, I'd like to thank you all for attending my first ever webinar. So if I was a bit shaky here and there, and I hope you enjoyed my jumping around, finding my power cord. Hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you for attending. Bye-bye.